Hold on. All right. So we are live on 2 of 3. I am just checking for IG. All right. Oh my goodness. Well, Nick, I'm so excited. Ruff. I know you prefer to be called Ruff, huh?
Uh, it's interchangeable at this point.
I was like, which one do I go with? But we're gonna go with Ruff because that's what you put in your headliner. But it's so great to be able to virtually sit down with you tonight and have this conversation. As I mentioned before, it's one that I was super looking forward to. I don't know when I first came across you on the interweb. I'm sure it was something on an IG reel or something, but you are always someone that I was just like, yeah, yeah, you get it, Rough. Almost every single post, I'm like, we have the same brain. So as I said, I can't get too deep into all the marketing things today. This is not one of our official master classes, but definitely will ask you to drop a few gems for us, of course, on that side. But for everyone tuning in live, welcome, welcome. We are live streaming on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube today. So if you are joining us live, welcome. Quick housekeeping, as we always do for Industry Trailblazer Chats. This is a live stream. We do make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, thoughts, feedback for myself or Ruff, please drop them in the comment sections on the platforms you are tuning in from. For Instagram, I am keeping an eye on the chat there. So use the comment section, please. Would love to make sure we don't miss anything that y'all would like to share, ask Ruff during today's conversation. But just to kick things off, because I am known to yap and go over my time. For everyone who is new here, Industry Trailblazer Chats is our monthly live stream conversation series. We launched it in 2024 last year, where I just got this idea of, hey, I'm having all these beautiful conversations one-on-one with different visionaries, creatives, founders, entrepreneurs. A lot of them intersect, obviously, music, arts, entertainment. And I was like, you know what? It would be so cool to launch a platform, have deeper conversations, but also get to learn a little bit more about every single trailblazer that we feature, a little bit more of what inspired your journey into music. Obviously, every single trailblazer is doing impactful things within their own roles and spaces. So a little bit about me, short and sweet, though, to kick things off before I get to yapping with Ruff about all the things. My name is Jazz Jackson. I'm the founder CEO of Unearthly Studios. We're a creative agency that focuses on all things brand, creative strategy, experiential events. We're moving into visual production in beta as we enter 2026, along with a bunch of other a la carte offerings that are tailored, as I said, with artists, creatives in mind. I also wear some different hats within the music biz, A&R, artist manager, curate playlists for fun, fan of music, passionate about it, but I also am a marketing girly and have been on the brand creative agency side for over a decade before I made the pivot to launch my own agency in 2023. And we're here now. That's a little bit about me, short and sweet, but the man of the hour, Ruff. So excited to have you here with us tonight. Once again, thank you so much for taking time, space to share some time with our community tonight. Now, Ruff, y'all, I'm going to do a little introduction. I want to make sure you can introduce yourself because I'm sure you probably do other things that I probably don't even know about within the industry and in the spaces that you're in. But Senior Vice President, Audience Engagement at Big Loud Rock. And you're also a visionary yourself with Unleashed Creative Solutions. So I know between both roles, you're all in with artists on the creative and brand side, building out campaigns, much like myself. And I cannot wait to get to my questions. But Ruff, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to diving in. The energy has been awesome. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. I see people joining in. Hi, welcome, welcome. I love seeing the little viewer count go up. So, as I said, introductions done. Questions, comments, feedback, please use the comment sections on the platform you are tuning in from. If you are on YouTube or LinkedIn, I can put them up on the screen. So if you want to get interactive, have your question feature, hop over on YouTube. And yeah, so kind of just kicking things off, Ruff. My first question, obviously, I kind of got to go back to the foundation and the journey, going back to the beginning. What for you was your first real connection to music and entertainment that made you think like this is what I want to do?
100%. Yeah. So I always have the same answer because it's the same story. It all started when I was in high school, and one of my buddies in class, we had just all our laptops out, always watching YouTube videos and never focusing on real work as high school kids do. And he was watching the Ultra Music Festival live stream, and it was the Chainsmokers 2016. I remember this very vividly. And that was kind of my first foray introduction into like what the world of dance music is, and like seeing music festivals at that scale and seeing like the live stream component of it. So immediately that's kind of what got me really bought into the dance music scene, started learning how to DJ throughout the rest of my time in high school, started DJing all our frat parties in college. And then COVID hits my sophomore year, took that time to really dive in and, hone the production side of things, started putting out remixes and originals all in the EDM world starting in 2020, really ramped up the social media side of things in 2021, had some viral moments with some remixes and originals late 2021, graduated a semester early, started, just doing the classic like Northeast club DJ opener run of all the spots like Nodo, Philly, and Lavo in New York. And then through that process of just, being out there live, releasing music as an artist, and, posting 2 to 3 times a day, all for my artist career. Like, it also brought, a lot of artists themselves wanting to just work and collab, and started bringing me production, gigs. And that led me to making pop songs and country and folk and rap and everything in between. And then that kind of took a little bit more of a passion for me than only making dance music for myself. So I started to drift more and more away from being an artist and a DJ and more into the production world for other artists. 2023, that's what brought me out to LA. So I moved out here in June of 2023. Pretty much immediately started just doing, 1 to 2 sessions a day, sometimes 3 in person. And as, you're just chit chatting, whether you like go take a coffee break, walk around, whatever, like everyone's, always complaining about content and I don't know what to post on social media. And that's when I started just giving the artists I was producing for ideas of, hey, like, that the song that you released 2 weeks ago, why don't you make a video like this or do stuff like that? And then that started to work really, really well for them. So I was like, okay, let me reverse engineer everything I did as an artist. Let me start making content about what I'm telling these artists, that I produced for. That really took off on my socials in 2024. So I built Unleashed around that kind of surge of my personal brand in 2024. Then that leads us to January 2025, get, discovered through my content by some of the folks over at Big Loud Rock. Went in for an intro meeting there, started consulting on how they can build out their audience engagement and digital marketing department. And then after a few sessions of just consulting on that, we both kind of came to the agreement of why don't, I join and build it. And now we're about 9-10 months into that process, really, really kind of coming to fruition from first meeting them to where we are now. And it's been a really awesome ride. I mean, we've scaled significantly in both places, and it's only just begun, for the music industry as a whole, in terms of like how much more opportunity there is now, how much things are changing, and how exciting it is, quite frankly, like to just be in this space. And you can look at it 2 ways. You could say, I have to do more now, or I get to do more now. And it's just making that choice.
The choice. I feel like I talk about that so much. It is a decision, and I always talk about socials with artists and clients. Like, these are tools, these are resources. How can we best utilize them to get you where you want to go? But yeah, I love social. I could definitely yap about it all day. And you kind of answered my next question, which was around kind of what had inspired you to launch your TikTok and start to produce creative around amplifying all of these beautiful music marketing gems, branding insights. Like, you are consistent AF, because I always catch your stuff like every single day. So, and I'm always like, yes, Ruff, tell them. They better be listening to you because you be on it. And yeah, I had a chance to look a little bit into the artists on the roster for Big Loud Rock, and I'm excited to dive deeper. I don't listen to as much rock music, I will say. I love it, I like it, but I've been more tapped out than tapped in. So I was clicking through and I was like, you know what, let me add this to my playlist so I can go back to this. But I have some questions about your work there, and maybe some of the projects that you're working on in just a little bit. But another question I wanted to ask you is kind of, what's your why for you? You know, I know SVP, I know you're doing a lot of stuff. You're probably leading other teams, other people. Days are long, campaigns, I know, can get a little crazy when you're rolling things out, working with teams. But for you, what keeps you passionate about really helping artists, their teams, connect with their audiences?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about like the gratification that comes when you have, you know, an internal team, whether it's, you know, an agency, a record label, if you're a management company or anything in between, like your internal team and that external team of the artists and whoever they bring along for the ride, all coming together with a shared vision of quite literally starting from nothing and building, you know, tangible growth and results still around nothing physical when it comes to, like, yes, you know, outside of vinyl and all that, like at the end of the day, like it's still airwaves that we're able to all come together and say, you know, these sounds and these airwaves, you know, are creating enough of an emotional impact across all these people involved that we're going to take it from point A to point Z and now spread that across, you know, all these hundreds of thousands, millions or billions of other people's lives. And it's just really, really a fascinating concept that I think, you know, people often get lost in the sauce and forget about. Like, hey, we're spreading airwaves. Like, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, something that I always go back to is like, how creative can we really get? And you know, when the clients, how experimental can we get? How much fun can we have? Like, I know you talk about the stories that we're trying to tell here, and how can we really create these moments that matter? And I feel like that's what I love marketing so much, because I went to school for film production. So I've always been like a creative storyteller, filmmaker girl. Like, you know, how are we creatively telling stories? And I feel like obviously marketing, it's still about stories. It's still about humans and connecting. It looks a little different. But yeah, with that, kind of talking about artists and teams. So being all in, you know, we're so tapped in, we have a pulse on, you know, what's the latest insights, what might be trending, things that are working well across the board, things that have been tried, proven, and tested across different campaigns that we've done. For specific like teams, like, how do you have conversations with maybe artists, managers who might be a little bit more skeptical about letting either the data, the insights inform the creative decisions versus maybe what they've always done? Maybe it's something, oh, we never tried this, I don't know about this. I'm sure you've had those kind of conversations with clients, but how do you kind of navigate those when it's like maybe an artist or a team that's like, I'm not too sure about that, or when it comes to data or the insights?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part of all of this, from, you know, whether it's an artist with, if we want to distill it down to like, you know, number of monthly listeners, like a brand new artist who, you know, has 10,000 monthly listeners, or someone with 50 million, like it's always going to be the toughest portion of the process of getting full buy-in from everyone involved, even if the artist is bought in, maybe someone on their team is not, until it's presented a certain way. So that's always going to be the hardest part of like getting everyone to row in the same direction. And then when that happens, now there's a clear objective, and it really just takes like the understanding and care of knowing like not only who are you working with, what is their communication style, how do you have to present things to them, but also everyone around them. And if you're just taking a, one shot, one size fits all approach to like, hey, here's how we do things, you're going to do it, and not like carefully think through like, how do we present this idea to this specific artist and their team differently than this other one, to make sure that both, if it fits for both of them, that they can both feel bought in, understand why it's being presented and what the outcome is going to be. Now you're in a much better place than just, kind of saying, hey, we need to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I figured you would say something similar to that, because I think I preach about that every single client throughout this past decade. None of them have been the same. From working with the smallest businesses to some of the biggest brands in the world throughout my career, none of them are the same. And it's always been personalized, tailored. When you're working with teams and people, at the end of the day, everyone is still human. But yeah, that's something I definitely agree on there. And then I'm sure there's probably been an instance where maybe the data revealed something that shifted the creative direction, and then something worked. Has that ever happened in your experience with campaigns that you've worked on?
1,000%. And like, I think a lot of what happens, quote unquote, like algorithmically or with the data gets wildly misconstrued, in the sense that like, just because the operating machine is quote unquote a robot doesn't mean that that's the thing that's making the decisions. Because at the end of the day, like, it's the human beings on the other end. So like, if nobody's watching your content, nobody's engaging, nobody's commenting, no one's listening to your music, or everyone's skipping it and it's not getting pushed out by the Spotify algorithm, that isn't like, drawing sticks at random and a robot deciding to gain consciousness and say, I hate this artist for no reason, so I'm just going to like not push any of their stuff. It's humans on the other end of that. So when the data says, things are going great, that means a lot of human beings and people are engaging with it actively. They like it. Like, if it's saying the opposite, that means they don't. And it's really, again, that communication of like ensuring that everybody involved like has that same understanding of, it's not a robot making decisions for us. Like, this is what, humans have kind of decided that they do and don't like, and it's just being presented to us in a digital form.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I cannot be the strategist I am without being just in depth with the analytics. I do use them. And something that I learned very early on is like, you can't measure what you don't track. And, that is, it's just information, y'all. It's information, so we can make it an informed decision. So yeah, I love looking at the data of it, and I think it's, like you said, it's a signal, right? And it can be a signal that things are, hey, we're in green here, or it can be a signal like, oh, okay, maybe we need to change our approach, go back to the drawing board, whatever we got to do to get you where you want to go. But yes, welcome everyone joining in live. I recommend hopping to YouTube so I can pull y'all's comments, thoughts, feedback, questions up onto the screen. I always love to give y'all love. And yes, my next question kind of flows into that. So I know you have a lot of different content that speaks about what the signals that you're looking for when you're analyzing an artist audience beyond just the demographics or the streaming numbers. So when you're maybe working with a new client, either with with your work at Big Loud Rock or with Unleashed, and you all are like maybe doing an audit with some fresh eyes, what are y'all kind of looking for beyond just those maybe demographics, streaming numbers? the vanity metric, maybe followers, the social metrics, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as thinking about what can be bought and faked, and what, if you tried to buy it and fake it, would be painfully obvious that you bought and faked. So you can buy likes, you can buy views, you could buy monthly listeners, you could buy Spotify followers, and nobody can really, look at that at a glance and say that was bought or that's fake. But when it comes to on the streaming side, streams per listener, which you can make a bot listen to the same thing over and over and over again, but that's not how bots work. They're running at a rapid scale to which like your streams per listener is going to be pretty terrible. So on the streaming side, like streams per listener, again, like this is just a metric that is presented to tell you as the artist or someone on the the team, like, hey, streams per listener means when someone listens to this, they come back and they listen to it multiple times. They listen again. They like this song because they're continuing to come back to listen to it. So that's a very important metric that's very human, human transaction related, of like people like this song, so they come back and they listen to it. On the content and on the social side, comments, shares, like can't really buy shares. And then when it comes to comments, if you buy and fake your comments section, like everyone can tell. It's just fire emojis. It's like it's painfully obvious when you bot your comments. So like if you're getting genuine organic comment activity on your socials to where people are, being vivid and descriptive and saying, like, if you have a song about how you just got married, someone saying this song reminds me exactly of, the time in my life when I first met my now wife, and that was 30 years ago, and this song is incredible. It's like, and you click their profile and it's like, an older gentleman in his 60s, and like he's got like 148 followers, and like 8 posts up with grandkids, and like there's his grandkids are commenting on it. You could like look at all that and say, this is a real person sharing a real experience via the comment section, much different than just a bunch of faceless accounts that have just like given likes, which were bought. So a very long-winded way to say streams per listener and comments, like, because I think it's also important to understand why, because, it's the hardest to fake.
Yeah, that's such a good insight. I'm right there with you. I focus on with our clients, call them like action metrics. So yeah, comments, saves, are they sharing it? I guess we have reposts now too on like the IG, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the platforms are going to come out with next for us. But yeah, those are the things that they're signals, and they're positive signals, especially I know you talk about fan base and building a genuine, real fan base. And I think too, I talk about community so much that I'm not going to do it today, but I could. But yeah, it comes down to, these are like real people connecting with real humans, and building a world that they want to be part of, beyond just a snippet on a TikTok, etc., or maybe one single. But no, those are such great insights. Once again, y'all, if you have any specific questions for Ruff, I have some that were submitted, but we'll prioritize anyone that is joining live. So questions, you can put them in that box and I'll make sure that I check throughout. My next question was kind of around your kind of framework for prioritizing where you might focus your time, the budget, or the creative energy in a campaign. Are there any things that y'all specifically look for, maybe depending on where an artist might be in their journey, or obviously as it relates to what are their current business or professional goals, etc., goals for the campaign release, etc. But is there a specific framework that you use across the board, or as we said, are you guys personalizing it as you like per artist, per campaign, etc.?
I mean, you definitely have to be as personalized as possible while still understanding like how each thing that gets personalized feeds the other, because there's 3 very, distinct, related, but different components to like what we can just say is, growing with, I don't even want to say this word because it's one of the things, but like growing as an artist, and it's branding, content, and then marketing. And I think a lot of people just throw everything under the umbrella of marketing, but marketing is just one portion of the equation, which is, if we think of it like a car, like your brand is the car. What kind of car? What are the brand values? The brand values and what you think of and what you feel like a Jeep Wrangler represents is much different than what a Ferrari versus a Honda minivan represents. So your brand is the car, the design, the colors, what that car is supposed to mean. What are you supposed to feel when you look at it? That is your brand. Content is the engine that without the engine, the car cannot run. But the engine is not the only thing. You need wheels, you need a destination, and you need navigation. Marketing is all of that. Marketing is the wheels that get you to your destination, but also the GPS navigation system that tells you where you're going. So if someone's goal and someone's GPS navigation system might be very different from another artist in the sense that artist A is like, hey, I literally just want to get a radio #1 because it'll be a really good look to brand myself. And here's why it always, ties back in as someone who had a #1, because all the songwriters that I want to work with to take the next step in my career on the music side, they only work with artists who've had previous #1s. So let's go all in on doing everything we can to get a radio #1. That's a very different goal than someone saying, I want to sell out the 1,500 cap room in my hometown for, my tour around the EP I put out last year. Very different goals, and which is why you need a very different approach to all of it. But you still need to understand, like, okay, this is the kind of car we're driving to get to that destination. This is what it represents. This is what it looks like. We always need content running and firing at all cylinders, 24/7, in the sense of like 24 hours, 7 days a week, something is out there and it's new and it's being refreshed, in those 24-hour windows. That's our engine. And then marketing is our destination and how we're getting there. And you need to, apply that flat approach to everyone, but then say, now, how do we customize the wheels and the engine and the color and the type of car to fit each unique case scenario that we're working with?
See, that was concise gems. Okay, Ruff. And like I said, this is not even a real masterclass, but like take some notes, because I talk about this all the time. Like you gotta get clarity on your brand, but branding might come before marketing, but then everything is marketing. And I think too, talking to so many artists, that content, the engine, the momentum, the building is where so many people continue to get stuck. And I know you do a segue into work that you're doing with Building Unleashed. And then also, I'm sure it correlates and transcends what you're doing with Big Loud Rock too. When it comes to Unleashed, I know y'all, I'm assuming, looking on your website, I know y'all focus on a lot of short form stuff with artists. I'm sure you're building out some long form stuff too, but what gap were y'all trying to fill when you brought Unleashed to life? And how do you feel like both roles complement each other with what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a believer that, like, I like to make a lot of analogies if we all couldn't tell already. And it's like there, in 2025, like when it comes to, fitness, there are two ways you could lose weight. There's through diet and exercise, and there's through like an Ozempic type situation. And it's the same thing with, branding, content, and marketing, where like you really can be handheld and have everything done for you in an Ozempic quick fix approach. And it can work, like that's for sure. But also, you gain such an understanding when you're, day in, day out, like doing the dieting and exercise and like learning what works for you and your body. And that's always been like the kind of mindset I've always wanted to take to all things like branding, content, and marketing, and how that's delivered to the artists and clients that we work with. Because when you position yourself as like, hey, just like, sign with us as a record label, or, give us money as an agency and like, we'll just do everything for you and you don't have to think about anything, that sets that artist up and their team and everyone around them up to be in a very bad position if anything should ever change in that equation. Because now they have no sense of like, why is my brand being even positioned this way? Like, I thought in the moment, oh yeah, I'll just let them, take over and control it. But now, I'm no longer working with them or signed to them, and
Right.
this doesn't feel like me. And like not taking the artist out of the process has never been what we've wanted to do, because when you put them in the driver's seat, like again, that car now, gets that destination much stronger.
Yeah, I agree. I am very much, all of our clients are very much hands-on for that reason. And even when we might be working closely with their team, their manager, I'm like, oh no, we pull them into what we need to, checks and balances. Is this still an alignment is a word we use a lot with our clients, making sure that everything that we're doing, recommending, what we move forward with feels in alignment with who they are at their core. And yeah, yes, that's a great point about comments. Y'all, I be talking about comments and engagement all the time, and Ruff, I'm probably sure too, on socials. I go off about people just like dropping the fire emojis or the hearts, and I'm like, yes, y'all, engage with others, okay? I'm the queen of it. Yeah, I be just commenting on everyone's stuff, okay? But yeah, my next question was around 2025 campaigns. I'm sure you have an eye on a lot of campaigns, ones that you're working on personally, but also releases and rollouts out in the world. What are maybe a couple campaigns that stood out to you in 2025? And maybe these are ones that you're working on, or ones that you've seen, but what made these campaigns, in your opinion, effective for maybe like an audience engagement perspective, or something cool that they did that really sparked a moment, etc.?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's always been, but now it's like a cool, trendy buzzword to be like experiential, in-person guerrilla marketing. But that is definitely like something that I feel like, while it's always been a very necessary driver, I feel like now just collectively, as like just an entertainment industry, like I feel like people are now like saying that it's like a new thing, but it's not. But I think the new way in which it's really working is when it works in tandem with like content and social media, to where like experiential, event marketing 50 years ago, you couldn't like mass distribute, while it was still very important, for anyone who was there in person,
Right.
to foster that connection. Now it's about like, how can we do something in person in which like it simultaneously gives everyone that was there a great experience, that they go spread word of mouth, and it serves like a very, we could say like traditional purpose of what it would have like 50 years ago. But at the same time, there's this like other component baked in of how do we, between like a clipping strategy and burner pages in-house and fan pages in-house and the artist organic socials, and then letting like, they don't sponsor me, so I won't say this company, but a company that allows for you to upload fans to upload content from your show in exchange for like contact information. Any of those, there's many of those companies. If anyone wants to sponsor this podcast, I'm sure Jazz would be stoked. But yeah, something like that, like one of those platforms like that, like all of that factoring in so that what happens in person can then spread. And I think like not 2025, but like Charlie XCX, Brat, and all that, like all of that is a great example. Bunt, the DJ, and all the pop-ups he was doing, and like everything that's in person is just becoming like, it's becoming more and more important to like ensure that it's one of the tools in the toolkit of like what campaign strategy you're pushing for.
I agree with this so much, which is why I love experiential. And I was heavy in it years ago. Then I moved into more influencer and brand, and now I'm going back into it with UNE. And we've done some stuff with clients in 2024 on the event side. But I talk to artists, clients about this all the time. On any budget, any scale, there is something creative that you can do to meet your fans where you're at and where they're at. And we've done some really cool creative things on our end, even with just between like being resourceful is another thing with artists. I'm like, y'all, there's partnerships everywhere, but also like a listening party. You can rent like an Airbnb. One of my favorite artists, her name's Hydra. She did kind of intimate listening party dinner experience called Hydra's House, and she rented some Airbnbs in different locations, had a few other artists kind of collaborate with her. And it was small, intimate, short, sweet, but it enabled her to meet those, day one fans in that environment. And, a lot of fans love intimate shows versus larger experiences. So I feel like there's a way to do it and a way to be so thoughtful about it. But yes, to your point, we're going back outside more than ever, y'all, in 2026. And there was this stat, man, I forget now the publication, but I'm gonna have to find it. But it was around just like the larger shift of like Fortune 500 companies, y'all, and where they're putting their budgets. And like 74% of them are moving a lot of their allocated spend into experiential. And that's a big wave. And it's like you said, Ruff, it's just across the board we're seeing it. I've seen how many more brands have moved funds from influencer into events and pop-ups and experiences this year. Artists, I feel like same thing, connecting with your fans outside more and more. It's going to be what we want to do. And also, there's some artists too that have been doing some like digital detox days where they meet up with their fans and they just like keep their phones like kind of like off to the side and they have other activities. I don't know. I think there's going to be some cool things that people do, even more so to connect with their audiences, their communities. But yeah, that's definitely something that I've seen across the board that works really well. Yeah, I love all the pop-ups and all that stuff. So yes. What was my other question? See, I was going to go off on a tangent about events and I was like, let me not do that because I could go deep on them. Are there any other rollouts that are a little bit recent or anything that you've caught that has stood out to you?
I think an artist who's doing a really great job of like selling the song, quote unquote, and quite literally like pushing, like an out now or like dropping the release date in a way in which like it's awesome and not just like lame added text on screen like later, is an artist named ZEP. Like just the way he's using like dirt and environment and nature and like kicking the dust and like then like they time lapse it and like it spells out the name of the song and like everything he's doing is just a masterclass and like really leaning on the post-production process to make, announcements quite literally, cool.
Hey, yeah, I just like pulled up his Instagram. I'm gonna dive deeper because I was like just looking at his Instagram. I was like, okay, yeah, I got to come back to this. This looks so freaking awesome. I love that. I was like, I feel like there's so many great rollouts that I'm just like, yeah, I was like, let me not get into my rollout tangent, y'all, today, because I could. And as we moving past 2025, the future of audience engagement, we talked about experiential events. We also have things like AI that is definitely here. Different platforms are emerging. We are in the attention economy for sure, where I know you had a reel where you're talking about and I say it all the time, like, it's not just you're competing with other artists or what's on Instagram. It's with Netflix and what's on football and, the next pop culture phenomenon that's going to happen tomorrow. Outside of experiential, are there any other trends that you're seeing in audience behavior that you and your team are kind of closely watching, whether it's AI, whether it's different platforms that might be a bigger thing as we enter the next few years, etc.?
Yes. So I think something that is not talked about, not that it's not talked about enough, but that it's not talked about, in my opinion, correctly is like, direct to consumer, like everyone being like, you got to have like a fan group chat or a Discord or a Reddit. And I'm like, very much of the thought process that while that is true and that AI is going to extremely change the game in terms of how much content will be out there and the sheer output of like stuff that you now have to sift through. That, yes, that's going to lead to humans craving human connection in a different way of wanting to have like discords and going back to like a group chat type of social interaction, consumption method. But like, no, it's completely unrealistic to think that like any human is going to be in a group chat or a Discord or anything like that around a specific interest unless it is quite literally their favorite of that interest. So like, if you're a football fan, you're not going to be in the group chat of 5 teams. You're only going to be in the group chat of your one favorite team. And you'll only be in the group chat of your one favorite artist, which then just raises and elevates the bar of like really finding and cultivating a fan base of people where you are not someone that they listen to in a crop of 50 other people on their like driving playlist. You are the tattoo artist where they'll tattoo your lyrics, your logo. Like, you are their favorite artist, point blank, period, ever. And that is like now reframes and changes how you need to attack like branding, content marketing, because as the consumption method of like furthering that fan base and driving revenue and doing all of that, like as that retreats more and more off public socials and more into like, we'll just like blanket statement call them like group chats, like you also going into that having the understanding that like people are not going to join the group chat talking about you and your music if you are not their number 1 to number 2 favorite artist ever. If they just kind of like one of your songs, that's not happening. So that now completely reframes trying to just reach everyone broadly and passively, and really honing in on like what is every key detail of the people who will really, really love me at a level that like I am now that number 1 artist for them.
Yeah. Oh, you hit the nail on the head with that. And I was even talking about like broadcast channels, because I love my broadcast channels, but I got them so early that I don't know. I think I'm in way too many, Ralph, probably, and it's a lot. But I was saying with even like a broadcast channel, like you said, Discord, these kind of community spaces, people get really choosy real quick. So it's like, as you know, whether you're an artist, an entrepreneur, creator, I speak broadly. I know my community, we got different folks in here. The community, y'all, the connections, the relationships that you're building, this is why they matter so much. Like, people are going to be opting out, or it's going to be very hard for them to opt in. So yeah, you're right on the money with that. And like you said, I think there's going to be a lot of cool opportunities for artists, too, in the next couple of years. And I think something that I even focus on with all of my artists and clients is like you said, we're trying to find the right people, the right audiences. We're not for everybody. We don't want to be. But when we find your people, if we know, as like wearing my artist manager hat, I'm like, if I know that, and we're looking at your DMs, your messages, I can identify 20, 50, whatever many people that are always responding, commenting, I'm going to tell you, lean into those relationships. Let's nurture those relationships. So what can something special we can do for those fans? Can we get all those people that we see like on your IG stories in a close friends group, or maybe like you said, like a group chat or something? Lean in on those people when you find them, and 10 turns to 50 turns into 100 real quick. But you're right, you're so right. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing the shifts from the Discords, the Patreons, the groups of the world. There's gonna be so many more tools in tech that are coming that I don't even know about yet, and so many that I don't even use. So but yeah, kind of like my final question to wrap up, and then I know there's a couple questions that people have submitted, but before we get to those, is there anything, I know 2025 is wrapping up, Ralph, which is crazy. I don't know where this year has gone, but kind of what's on the horizon for you? Or is there anything that y'all are like wrapping up that you can share? Anything that you're looking forward to for 2026 for Unleashed? Maybe something you're personally working on, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, everything is just growing. Teams are growing. Artist rosters are growing. Unfortunately, all the really awesome stuff cannot say yet, but classic like you'll find out soon type thing, but it is true, and there's a lot of cool stuff, and I am very excited, and I will just leave it at that, and we will revisit hopefully in 6 months.
Yes, I'm gonna be keeping an eye out. There was a couple questions that were submitted, and I think let's see. This is a good one. So kind of it was around building campaigns on limited budgets. So a lot of emergent artists, they obviously don't have big budgets when it comes to creative marketing, etc. I talk about being resourcefulness all the time, but definitely kind of want to get your opinion. What's your advice for creating impactful campaigns with limited resources? Where should an emerging artist invest their time, money to get them first, at least, to get the most meaningful results?
For sure. I mean, it does start with the engine, right? So content, and like content is free. Yes, you have to pay for Wi-Fi and a phone and all of that. But at the same time, like you do need to be, more innovative in like how that quote unquote free content becomes unique and engaging and stands out. And that's where like, again, tying it back to like doing things in person that lead to moments that, make better content, that even that could be very low budget or free, of like, like just an idea that I'll like throw out there hypothetically is like, how much does it cost? Like this is, and I don't mind using this idea because, it's so played out now. So like, I wouldn't recommend doing it, but like at the time it was like a really ingenious, cheap, creative marketing stunt to like print a bunch of flyers of like, Jessica, like you cheated on me and now I exposed you, like scan the QR code and I'll show how I exposed you. And like you scanned it and then it went to the album, and then people would like film the people scanning it and like getting the reaction. And like, that was like, I've seen that like format of content go crazy viral, like many, many times, like a year to 2 years ago. And that's like a very low budget, but high lift in terms of the sheer ingenuity of it. And that's very low budget. And that's like, again, tying in a very cheap to borderline free in-person activation with content.
Yep. There's brands doing, see, I be paying attention, but the only because it happened today that I'll say it. But like there's Snapple did activation. I think it was in New York City. I could be wrong, the location, but they had like the Snapple bodega, and I think it was New York, and they had Snapple in the glass bottle because it's like you can't really get that anymore. But they had this whole line blocks down with people waiting to get a bottle of glass Snapple to snap a picture in front of the activation event. But as you said, it creates these organic moments, people taking pictures, photos, all that stuff. And that's something that I just saw today. But it's like I said, there are ways to do it where, you can do something that's super unique, creative, and resourceful. But yeah, I talk with our clients about being resourceful all the time. When I went to college, I was the queen of the 0 budget film challenges and like 48-hour film challenges where we just had to be so scrappy. We had to figure it out how to get a short film done in 48 hours. There was no budget. It was like, who do we know? What can we use? What prop? What environment? And it like forced me to get really resourceful. So I think it stretched my creativity muscle in a lot of ways, which is great for what I do now. But yeah, that was one of the questions. And then the other one that I will throw out there, there was like a few, but I'm gonna leave you with one more. Kind of when to bring in professional help. I think this is a big one. I know as a strategist, sometimes artists are like very DIY for a while before obviously they might be able to outsource and bring in professional help versus DIYing it. Are there any signals for you that indicate that an artist and or their team's ready to invest in external expertise like Unleashed or a strategist, etc., to build their team?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when it becomes, painfully obvious in whatever it means for you to say, it's obvious that this is more than just like a hobby or a passion, whether that's from external factors like data or internal factors of just you really, emotionally and from an investment perspective of like how you feel about it, you're saying, hey, like this really is, something that I need to do like as my career. At that point, then like all the external help is what has to be brought in at some point for that next step to be taken.
Yeah. Always say like there will be signs eventually. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing so many gems, Ruff. Like I said, I have more questions, but I'm a yapper, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I do end every single conversation with the same question to keep something very broad, but quick 30 seconds. What is one gem, one actionable piece of advice that you would just leave an artist with today?
Today, I would say, don't let, as much as like we've touched on the data side of things, like don't let it affect you, because again, if we go back to that car analogy of like, if every time you dinged up, a bumper, or you had like an engine malfunction and then like didn't drive the car anymore, like you'd be in a very bad position. So like thinking and taking that approach to your entire career in terms of like, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, the same every day, but like, don't let little minor things, as big as they may feel in that moment, affect the long-term goal. And it's very easy to get caught up in the streams of a single song, the performance of a single video, but there's so much more to that A to Z journey and destination than those little bumps and bruises along the way.
Yes, I agree with that 1000%. It is like going back to Nipsey, it is definitely a marathon, y'all. And yeah, thank you so much. This was so great. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you to everyone that tuned in live. If you're catching the replay, drop a comment with a gem insight, your favorite takeaway moment. If you caught us halfway through, still here, you can, great news. As soon as we end the live stream, this will be available on YouTube and LinkedIn for your viewing pleasure. And once again, Earl, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This conversation was so great. Even me. Okay, I'm always getting something, a little gem that I can put into my toolbox. I need to figure out how to use some more analogies. I'm gonna have to get me some good ones because I like yours. But yeah, no, this was so great. And yes, I hope everyone has a great night. Bye, everyone.